Hi, David Waldas here. Thanks so much for tuning in to another one of my short videos. So today I'm talking to you about the subject of being bold and really putting ourselves out there. And whenever we do that, there's an audience that receives us. So for some people that means being up on stage talking to a group of people. For other people that means one-on-one social interactions. Where is it that it feels bold to you to put yourself out there? Maybe it's at work. Maybe it's after work when you go to meet up with some friends or you want to introduce yourself to somebody new. We all have places where it feels bold for us to put ourselves forward. And whenever we do that, like I said, we create an audience. And that audience we tend to look to for feedback about how we're being received. So that's great. And yes, it's really important as you're communicating with people to get an idea of how they're responding to you. And at the same time, we have a tendency to see whatever it is that we're looking for. So for example, say I'm standing in front of a room of 20 people presenting, and I'm a little bit nervous about what I'm presenting, and I want to make sure that people are really getting it. I have a genuine concern and caring that my message gets out there to people. And so I'm looking around the audience and people are nodding their heads. And I see this one person sitting in the front row looking at me like, almost like, what is he talking about? And then all of a sudden I start thinking, am I not reaching this person? And my focus, instead of being on the 19 other people in the audience that are nodding their head and be like, yes, thank you for sharing this. This is so helpful. It's really easy for me to focus on the one person that's looking at me like, just what is going on? And, then we start to tell ourselves stories about, is there something I'm not being clear about? Do I need to reintroduce an idea that I already talked about? And we start putting it back on ourselves. When at the same time, this is one person and there's 20 people or 19 other people that are really engaged. And the funny thing is, quite often it may just be that person's expression they make when they're really focusing. There's a lot of people that kind of have that open mouth, like they're not present when they're really, really present. So that's true for groups, and it's also true when we're talking to one-on-one people, that the response we get from people is quite often what we put back on ourselves, and we decide whether or not we're being successful with it. Does that make sense? So as we're looking at the evidence that's coming back to us, you may think that you're being very aware and really focused on looking for the feedback, but the truth is that really the evidence that we are looking for tends to be what we find. So I think we've all seen those people that that always think that whatever they're doing is just the most amazing thing, and people just love it, and they're just epic. And when they present themselves, that's what they're looking for. So there might be 9 people looking at them like, who is this goofball? And the one person that gets it, that's like where all their focus is. And they're just like, yes, this guy gets me. This is awesome. And then there's the other people that, the one person doesn't get them. And there's 9 people that do. And they're like, oh, what am I doing wrong? Looking for that feedback. So it's really an interesting thing to look at within yourself. What is it you're looking for when you're putting yourself out there, when you're being bold? And you create an audience by doing that. What is it that you're expecting to see from the audience? What is it that you're scanning for? Are you scanning for positive responses, or are you scanning for people that don't get you and it's fulfilling a fear? So they're both going to be there, by perception. Maybe everybody gets you, but some people may look like they don't. And just the truth, maybe some people don't get you, but you can interpret what their look is going, oh, they do get me. They just, they must be tired, or, whatever we're telling ourselves. So what that means then is our audience that we're reaching, yes, they are out there, but ultimately our audience is ourselves. Because what we expect to see, what we're looking for, the feedback that we're scanning for, tends to be what we see. So it is really important to kind of have that balance and look for feedback in a neutral way of how are people responding to me? Are they getting it? Slowing yourself down so that you can scan the people you're talking to and look for those social cues that are coming back at you and respond to them, but don't discount the filter that you have of what you're actually looking for, because we all have them in one direction or another. So it's kind of an interesting just experiment what you can do with yourself, where you start to play with the idea of, what am I expecting, and what am I looking for? What am I scanning for? And as you debrief with yourself, realizing that, yes, you saw what it is you expected to see to a certain degree. So when we take the time to debrief with ourselves, then it can just turn into an experimentation in a lot of ways. And it takes some of the pressure off, because if we're simply looking to people for a response, like, oh, they didn't like that, that was bad on my part, maybe they're not your audience. Maybe they're not somebody that's going to resonate with you. And if you presented yourself to 7 other people that same way, they might respond in a very positive light. So, if there's continued negative feedback, and there's continued people going, I think that, you're talking way over people's heads. Okay, sure, that there's, truth in that. But at the same time, we tend to respond to the minority so much more than the majority of people that are responding to us, based on our own fears or maybe our own inflated sense of self, because it does go in both ways. So what I'm going to challenge you with here is to go out and do some experimenting, to find some opportunities for you to be bold yourself, whether, if it's a social situation. A lot of the people I work with that do similar things to myself, the boldness is so much about putting ourselves out there, to making videos or doing webinars or whatever it is that we're working on. And for so many of my clients, though, it's much smaller. It's those interpersonal relationships. It's meeting people. It's putting themselves out there and introducing themselves. So when the focus is, oh my God, how is this person responding to me as I'm really pushing myself, then it's only one individual response that you're basing this on. So what I'm putting out there for you then is to go out there and just experiment with a variety of people. Try being bold. Try presenting yourself. Try starting up conversations and putting yourself out there, and see what kind of a response you get. And find humor in it, because when we're doing this as an experiment, when we're doing this as, what am I looking for, which we're kind of debriefing with ourselves afterwards and during, and also just trying out different ways of presenting ourselves, then what we're actually doing is just trying on different roles. And it doesn't feel so personal, because yes, there's an authenticity to it that we're working towards, but at the same time, we're trying different ways to come across. And when we're doing that deliberately, if somebody rejects it, we're like, oh, well, that way didn't work. It wasn't me that didn't work. It was just what I was experimenting with. Or if we, put ourselves out there and people love it, we go, okay, well, maybe that's a place where I can spend a little bit more time expressing myself, where I can find my authenticity in that. And, just take it with a grain of salt. If we don't find humor in ourselves, and we take everything so seriously, and we focus on the people that don't get us rather than people that do get us, of course the world feels daunting. Of course the world feels like we're not being received well in it. And just as much as the same is true for the complete opposite of expecting everybody to love you, and only seeing that, there is some balance that's necessary. But when we see ourselves experimenting, we can focus on not so much the audience and not so much ourselves, but just different ways of being. And it doesn't have to feel so intense. It doesn't have to feel so much like we're the ones being judged or judging others. All right, so I challenge you to go out and play with being bold in whatever realm it is that feels bold to you, and try on just different ways of expressing yourself. And notice what you're looking for. What have you trained yourself to see in others, and what are you expecting to see in others with how they respond to you? Because you'll see a great truth that is so much of what you're tuned into. And experiment with expecting to see something different. And I think you'll be surprised by what shows up for you. All right, well, thanks so much for tuning in to this bit of wisdom that I'm offering here. And the idea is offering these small bits of wisdom with big payoffs. So I hope this is a big payoff for you. And please comment and let me know what kind of experimenting you try out and what kind of results you get. All right, well, have fun with it, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks so much.